Hello, sinners and saviors. My name is TV Skyen, and there's a new champion. Yeah, that just happened out of nowhere. New champion. So this was posted like 2 minutes ago on Twitter by SpiderAxe, who's very dialed into stuff that updates on the League of Legends websites. And one of the things that updated today was this guy's universe page just went live. I'm not 100% sure if it was meant to. If we're dealing with like just a huge, unfortunate, accidental leak from Riot, but whether or not, with my apologies to whoever's big reveal I'm going to be spoiling by making a video about this, yeah, I can't ignore that, because holy shit, new champion all of a sudden. So this looks like it is the AD carry, or rather the Lunari champion that Riot teased in the last roadmap. They talked about like that there was going to be a Lunari champion coming out. We all got excited because we haven't had a proper Lunari champion since Diana, basically. Like, Zoe is technically also from the Lunari tribe, but she's not a Lunari as such. She's an aspect of the Twilight, and she's from the Lunari thousands of years ago, blah, blah. She's not currently a Lunari, is what I'm trying to get at. So I have had we're doing this live, basically, more or less. I don't have any clue about what this guy is about or what's going on with him, so we're reacting to him more or less as we see him. So it's called Aphelios, the weapon of the faithful. Our faith is proven each time we deny it, is Alune's quote. Okay. Who the hell's Alune? Emerging from Moonlight's shadow with weapons drawn, Aphelios kills the enemies of his faith in brooding silence. Oh, speaking only through the certainty of his aim and the firing of each gun. Though fueled by a poison that renders him mute, he's guided by his sister, Alune. Oh, so that's why she has the quote up here. In her distant temple sanctuary, from where she pushes an arsenal of moonstone weapons into his hands. For as long as the moon shines overhead, Aphelios will never be alone. Interesting. So we'll look at his bio in a second, but let's start by looking at his splash art. Because he's a pretty boy. Like, that's a very pretty lad that they've designed for us here. Which is interesting, like, because that's something that League of Legends has, like, we have, like, Kayn and Ezreal, to a certain extent, who are sort of the pretty boys of League of Legends, but even they aren't like this level of bishonen. Like, it seems to be very much drawn from that particular visual tradition, which is interesting. That's something that League of Legends hasn't really had much of. And this is like your classic anime protagonist kind of setup, isn't it? Like, we've got the anime protagonist who's like mute and cool, and he looks badass, and he has weapons, and then his tragic sister in the Moonlight Sanctuary far away, guiding him and helping him by giving him his superpowers and weapons. That's the setup for like a half-decent shonen anime right there. And looking at his character design, well, there's kind of not a lot to say there. Well, there is, but in the sense of it's rather understated. All things considered, he's not like an extravagant, sort of flamboyant type of character design. He's got some purple going on. That's sort of the brightest, most cheerful color he's really got. And then the muted teal of the sash that's hanging over his shoulders. And I think that really the most extravagant thing about him is that moon crescent tattoo thing that he's got going on over his eye and down his lip, which is interesting. So as far as I can tell, what's happening here is that Alune is teleporting a weapon into his hand. Like, it looks like it's sort of magically appearing. And this is a gun of some sort? Sickle? I'm not 100% sure what it is, but something about it reminds me of, because like that's the handle, right? So besides being curved, that looks a lot like the kinds of weapons that Lucian and Senna wield. Doesn't it? Like, that looks kind of like that. And that's the thing that makes this such a surprising reveal, is like, we had Senna, like, a couple months ago? We just did a new champion! And I haven't even gotten to do a What's the Deal video about Senna yet, and now this guy is all of a sudden here. Okay. Anyway, so we have a contrast in expression where, like, all of his colors are relatively dark. Like, this is, if he was standing in shadow and utter darkness, purple and teal and brown and gray are colors that don't show up very well in the dark. By contrast, his sister, being this moon spirit presence that hovers over him and presumably guides him, and presumably that thing hovering behind her there is a weapon that she can grant him to use in combat, is all identified with bright blue, silvery moonlight. So you got the moonlight and the shadow. I think that's the contrast that's being set up here, is that she's the light and he's the shadow cast by the light, as it were. Now you can tell he's got the assassin thing going on, like, because there's definitely some Assassin's Creed influence in that particular shape profile, like that. He's got this very triangular shape around his torso here, which is an interesting design decision, like to have the collar go and the shoulders go up so high that his whole upper body basically becomes this sort of a trapezoid or diamond shape. That sort of, it gives him a very large upper body profile, which is an interesting design decision. I wonder if that still happens when he stands up straight, like, because it feels like he's lowered his neck a little bit here. But it does give sort of vaguely the impression that his head is a little bit too small for his body, which is an interesting decision, which is a little bit, that's a little bit in this in the design tradition of shonenai, or even boys love, men's love characters, where certain characters will have their heads shrunken to be a little bit smaller than they really should be to give them a larger body profile, which is a design trick from that tradition. Don't know if that's entirely intentional on this splash art. Like, for all we, if this is a leak, this might not be the final splash art. So who knows? Stuff could change before this becomes official. I have no idea. I'm surprised. A couple of interesting things about his design. Like, he's got purple and blue going on. And the only other Lunari we really have to work with, like the one who's like an adherent of the Lunari faith, who is like a member of the Lunari cult of the moon, is Diana. And Diana, as I recall, is much more identified with silver, gray, and black. Whereas this guy is comparatively more colorful. He does share color schemes with Zoe, though. Like, Zoe also carries around a bunch of purple and blue. So maybe that's more the design aesthetic they're going for, and Diana is eventually going to be updated to be more in line with that. Or it's just an expression that Diana is this sort of emotionless, cold-hearted, angry killer. Whereas this guy is perhaps more emotionally stable. Who knows? He's certainly silent and mute, so no way to tell. I do like that the little crescent curves that are incorporate, like the sort of the slight crescent curviness of a lot of the design elements on him, like especially the weapon. They do a good job of selling the moon idea, I think. Although they're less explicit than they are in Diana. Like, the most explicit bit of, like, explicitly Lunari accoutrement we've got is this necklace right here, which has the classic Targon circle and curve design thing going on. Curious. Now, it's hard to tell much about Aluna here, because she's mostly transparent. But she does wear, like, garbs that make her look like a high priestess sort of character with this elaborate headgear and the amulet and stuff like that. As for the background, this, I suppose, must be a Lunari temple of some sort? Or are these people Solari and he's come to kill them? They might actually be Solari because they're identified with orange lights rather than blue and purple, which is the color scheme of the Lunari. So they might be a bunch of Solari that he's just landed in the middle of their temple and he's about to, well, do bad things to them, one would imagine. I do like the idea of an assassin who is mute, who cannot speak. That's an interesting idea, and then to have, like, his sister, I suppose, handle most of his voice lines. So let's read his bio, which is here. The moon looms close over the towering slopes of Mount Targon, distant yet impossibly close. Born during a rare lunar convergence when the physical moon was eclipsed by its reflection in the spirit realm, Aphelios and his twin sister Alune was celebrated as children of destiny by those of Targon's Lunari faith. Mirroring the celestial event that heralded their birth, the two children knew they had been marked by fate. Did they? Aphelios physically gifted like the moon of stone. Okay. Don't know what that means. And Aluna magically like its spiritual reflection. Okay, so the moon of stone being the one that actually hangs in the sky. Okay. Zealously devout, they grew up within a faith of mystery, reflection, and discovery, and embraced the darkness not just out of belief, but as the only thing that could keep them safe. The Solari, who ruled Targon, considered the Lunari heretics, driving them into hiding until most forgot the Lunari even existed. The Lunari were left to the shadows, dwelling in temples and caves far from the Solari's light. The pressure to be exemplary weighed heavily upon Aphelios. He practiced tirelessly with mystical moonstone blades, spilling his own blood in training so he could spill that of others to protect the faith. Intense and vulnerable, he bonded deeply with his sister in lieu of any other friendships. While Aphelios was sent on increasingly dangerous missions to protect the Lunari, Alune trained separately as a seer, using her luminous magic to reveal hidden pathways and truths by the moon's light. In time, her tasks required her to leave the temple where they were raised. Without Alune, Aphelios' faith wavered. Desperate for purpose, he undertook a ceremonial journey into darkness where the Lunari was set to discover their paths, their orbits. He followed the moon's light to a pool where rare noctum flowers bloomed beneath the water's surface. Though poisonous, the flowers could be distilled into a liquid that opened him to the night's power. Drinking the noctum's essence, Aphelios felt so much pain that it numbed him to everything else. Soon after, an ancient temple, the Maros Omegnum, began to come into phase from the spirit realm for the first time in centuries. Lunari from across the mountain gathered, emerging from hiding to witness the balance of power shift as celestial cycles in the heavens turned. The fortress accepted only one occupant, gifted in magic each time it appeared. This time it would be Alune, her orbit guiding her to the temple. Aphelios, usually asking for nothing, requested to attend the event. But as the fortress passed through the veil in a luminous display of magic, a harsher radiance filled the night. Somehow the Lunari had been discovered, even as celestial cycles turned in their favor. An army of Solari descended upon them. All seemed lost, the Solari purging the Lunari heresy with fire and steel. Even Aphelios was beaten, his moonstone blade shattered on the ground, blood spilling from his lips as he reached for the noctum. But as battle raged, Alune traveled deeper into the temple, and when she reached its heart, her full potential unlocked. Through the noctum, Aphelios could feel Aluna's power embrace him, and he could hear her voice. With a whisper, she pushed magic into his hands, a replacement for his blade solidifying into moonstone. Like the moon of stone and the spiritual reflection, Aphelios' skill and Aluna's magic converged. Those Solari would not live to see the sun again. As her power flared, Alune pushed the temple and herself within back into the spirit realm where it would remain safe from the Solari. From inside, amplified by the temple's focusing power, Alune was able to project her magic anywhere so long as it found focus, like the poison coursing through Aphelios' veins. Only now did they understand their destiny. Aphelios would hollow himself out with pain, but would become a conduit for the moon's power. Alune would live alone, isolated in her fortress, but she would guide her brother, able to see through his eyes. Together, they would be the weapon the Lunari needed, bound by pain and sacrifice. Only apart could they be together, their souls brushing across the veil, distant yet impossibly close, converging into something they could not understand. To protect the survivors of the attack who retreated back into the shadows of the mountain, Aphelios' training as an assassin has been given reach by Aluna's magic. His blades, now an arsenal of mystical weapons perfected by Alune over the course of many missions together. Now that the power balance of Targon is shifting, and the Solari know the Lunari still endure, Aphelios and Alune are needed more than ever. Interesting. We don't have a short story for them yet, so what's going on here is, like I said, this is the setup for a relatively decent shonen battle anime, where we have Aphelios, man guy, manly man, Mr. Man-Man, suffering in silence, literally, with pain and taking misery upon himself in order to protect the faith that he believes in, and indeed to protect his sister, whereas his sister is like kind, nurturing, guiding, caring, but also distant and removed so that they can't have emotional intimacy in the traditional sense. So there's some tropes going on there, certainly, that are interesting and which aren't in League of Legends yet as much. So it's interesting that they're adding them, but there's also, I mean, there's gonna be criticism, is basically what I feel is, because it's a very stereotypical gender division of emotional labor that's going on here. Not that that's a problem, like, you can easily tell good stories about stuff like that. It's just, yeah, wow, you sure did go with those tropes, Riot. Well, that's fair enough. He does look cool, and I'm excited to see what kinds of abilities he brings to the Rift. I'm curious to see what their short story is going to be like, because what's being signaled here is that there's a shift in power in Targon. Like, the Solari dominance over Targon might be shifting a little bit, because now the Lunari have super powerful Hyper Priestess and Captain Assassin the Silent running around doing assassination missions and generally forcing the Lunari to reckon, the Solari to reckon a little bit more with the power of the Lunari. Which is interesting because, like, that does shift a little bit in especially Diana's story, because Diana's story is all about being alone, discovering the Lunari faith, but at least unless they've changed it. I haven't actually checked. They might have just updated Diana's bio for all I know. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. We're doing this live anyway. Who gives a shit? Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. No, it's exactly the same. Her story remains the same. And so that's interesting because part of Diana's story, part of what's going on with her is that well, her faith is like she's the only one who discovered she's alone in her faith. Like she's a lone Lunari standing against the religious hegemony of the Solari. But what we're being told here is that while maybe the Lunari aren't that numerous, there's certainly enough of them to have a community of faith and to have like faith traditions and temples and all kinds of stuff. And then you have to kind of wonder, why is Diana so alone then? If she's the aspect of the moon, so how is she not like... How is it that these guys were attacked and nearly purged and Diana wasn't there? How did she not know? There's some interesting questions to be answered there, and I imagine that at some point during the release of this guy and his sister, we're gonna get an update to Diana that kind of plugs those holes, because it introduces some interesting little chinks in the armor, as it were, of the way that the Lunari Solari storyline has been set up. But yeah, as usual, Riot are doing a bunch of teasing for future storylines in this particular bio, in that Aphelios and Alune are... By the way, Aphelios is Aphelios, which is... Helios means sun, Lune means Luna, the moon. So there's some naming puns going on here. What was I about to say? Right. It introduces some interesting questions about the future of Targon. Like, they're teasing this idea that, oh, Targon may be in conflict in the future. Like, maybe they're gonna fight. Maybe there's gonna be a new division of power in... Like, maybe stuff is gonna change in the League of Legends world state, which is something that they've promised many times before, and let's be honest, quite rarely delivered on. The last time they actually pulled the trigger on like a major power structure change in the League of Legends universe was when they temporarily killed off Gangplank and made Miss Fortune Captain Fortune. Although they didn't actually change her basic character design or give her a rework or anything, so... Anyway, those criticisms I suppose will have to come later. This was just a quick reaction video to the fact that Aphelios is the new champion. I'm not sure they meant to reveal him, but they sure did. Oh boy! Anyway, if you enjoyed this surprised video from a surprised man, surprising you with a surprise that no one had seen coming, surprisingly, then you can hit the like, comment, and subscribe buttons down below, and I'd be grateful for those numbers going up, because numbers going up is what YouTube wants out of us. They don't really care about the videos, they just want the numbers. If you want to support the channel more directly and help me escape the tyranny of numbers that comes from YouTube, then Patreon and my tip jars down in the description are there for that. Also, I have a merchandise store. I keep forgetting to mention the merchandise sometimes, but I do have that, and that's also in the description, so if you want a shirt, I have those. They're comfortable. I own a couple. They're good. So, other than that, I suppose, if you don't want to support me directly, that's completely understandable. Like, money is tight for everybody, including me, and I completely get that. But the thing I will encourage you to is, anytime you can, if there's a content creator whose work you enjoy, like who just makes your life a little better when they upload a video, please consider supporting them directly with anything, like literally just a $1 donation, because those $1 donations can be the same as thousands of views on a YouTube video. So even if it's not me, like, it's fine, but if there is an online content creator, especially small ones, especially people who are starting out, that $1 donation can actually mean a lot more than you think, especially with Christmas coming up, which is an expensive time of year for independent content creators, especially because, you know, travel and get gifts and God knows what else. Anything else I need to... No, if you haven't enjoyed this video, you can hit the dislike button down below. And I don't know if that does anything anymore. I've hit it so many times, and nothing seems to change. YouTube is still the platform that it has always been. Does anything really matter? You should probably hit the like button instead. Thank you very much for watching. I don't know what the hell I'm doing.